They told us not to fire, even if it moved. That's what one retired Marine whispered when he was asked about the Vermont tunnels. He said it like he still remembered the sound, a low, dragging breath echoing through the dark metal walls. Officially, there was never a mission there. No operation logs, no debrief files, no name. But a few men who were sent in that winter night swear otherwise. They say something was buried deep beneath those mountains. Something the military tried to contain, not recover. For decades, Vermont's Green Mountains have held their share of Cold War relics. Decommissioned bunkers, forgotten mines, underground fuel silos sealed and left to rot. But what the Marines claim they found inside one of those abandoned structures doesn't sound mechanical or human. They describe the movement under the concrete, rhythmic, like breathing. And when one team tried to map the tunnel system, their gear began to fail. Lights flickered, comms died, and one soldier radioed back a single word before his signal cut off completely: moving. The next morning, command shut the site down and pulled everyone out. The official report labeled the mission a geological instability. But according to the men who were there, it wasn't the ground that was unstable. It was something in it. If that's true, it would mean the United States military stumbled onto something buried under Vermont that's never been acknowledged, classified, or explained. And tonight, for the first time, we're going to piece together what they claim was down there, and why some of them still refuse to talk about it. Vermont, a quiet state known for its forests, maple farms, and small mountain towns. But beneath its calm surface lies a labyrinth of tunnels, forgotten mines, Cold War storage facilities, and sealed military chambers that stretch for miles under the Green Mountains. Some of these places are documented, others erased. Over the last decade, whispers from a handful of retired U.S. Marines have reignited old questions about an alleged underground operation that went wrong, and about what was really moving beneath the ground during that night in 1983. No official acknowledgement, no mission name, just fragments, coordinates on redacted reports, strange seismic readings, and the same repeated warning: do not engage. Tonight, we're going to trace those fragments from the history of Vermont's hidden military tunnels to the testimonies of the men who claim they saw something the government never wanted unearthed. This is Vermont Lurkers. Marines spill the beans on what's underground. The Green Mountains of Vermont stretch for over 200 miles, a spine of granite, limestone, and forest running up the heart of the state. Most people know them for ski towns and hiking trails, but buried deep beneath those slopes are miles of tunnels, some natural, most not. The U.S. Geological Survey mapped many of these caverns back in the 1970s and 80s. Old mining networks, granite quarries, abandoned transport shafts dating back to the Civil War. But a few locations were left off the public record. One of them sits less than 20 miles from a decommissioned military storage site, officially listed as a Cold War materials depot. Locals who work nearby still remember the convoys that came through at night. Flatbed trucks with covered cargo, no markings, no headlights. During the Cold War, Vermont was an ideal place for underground infrastructure. The rock density made it stable. The isolation meant secrecy. And between 1962 and 1989, the state quietly became home to a handful of small, classified facilities
built for emergency operations continuity. Some were just supply bunkers. Others, like the one near Smuggler's Notch, went deeper. 4 levels down, according to old military schematics that leaked years later. Most of those tunnels have long since been sealed, but if you know where to look, you can still find concrete access doors welded shut, hidden in the woods, overgrown with moss and rusted chains. Locals call them the mouths, because, as one old miner once put it, something went in there. Nothing ever came back out.
The first story comes from a man I'll call Sergeant Michael Davis. Not his real name, but that's how he signed the interview transcript that surfaced in 2014. Davis served in the Marines from 1979 to 1987. Most of his deployments were routine: base security, logistics, and cold weather survival operations across the Northeast. But in the winter of 1983, he was reassigned for a rapid response exercise somewhere in northern Vermont. At least, that's what they told him. According to Davis, the briefing came late at night in a temporary command tent. No insignias, no written orders. Just a printed map, a red X marking a remote sector along the edge of the Green Mountains. The only thing that stood out was a single typed instruction at the bottom of the page: do not engage if visual contact is made. Davis said everyone in the squad thought it was a mistake. We figured we'd be going into a training site, he said, maybe searching for a missing unit or a mock drill target. But the equipment didn't match that story. They were issued full bio-sealed suits, portable Geiger counters, and modified M16 rifles with low-yield suppressors. That's not what you give a team for an exercise, he said. That's what you give them when you're expecting contamination, or something that shouldn't be disturbed. The convoy drove for hours in silence, headlights off, following an escort jeep that carried no markings. By the time they arrived, it was close to 3 a.m. There was snow, but not fresh snow, Davis recalled. It looked packed down, like something heavy had been dragged over it. Ahead of them, a steel hatch jutted from the hillside, half buried in frost, padlocked, and surrounded by fencing that looked newly welded. No one spoke. Their team leader checked his watch, gave a nod, and radioed 3 words to command: Team 1 entering. That was the last transmission recorded before the static began. What happened next, Davis said, didn't make sense on paper. The first corridor was just concrete, normal. But then the walls started to change. They looked organic, like something had grown over the structure itself. I saw what looked like roots, he said, except they were warm to the touch. A few minutes later, one of the motion sensors went off, not behind them, but ahead. We heard breathing, Davis whispered. Heavy, like someone was in pain. But the sound bounced in a way that made it feel like it was coming from everywhere. The lieutenant called for a halt. They checked the counters. No radiation, no toxins. Then the lights flickered. We thought the generator was dying, Davis said. But the light wasn't flickering. It was shifting, like something was standing between us and the beam. Seconds later, the breathing stopped. Then came a noise none of them could explain. A low, dragging scrape, metal against stone, echoing from deep ahead. That's when command ordered the abort, Davis said. We turned around, but the tunnel we came through, it wasn't there anymore. Just wall. He never saw the other half of his unit again. Davis said the next thing he remembered was waking up outside at dawn, near the convoy trucks, with no memory of how he got there. A medical officer told him it was a gas leak, a hallucination. But Davis said he still dreams about that sound, the scraping, the breathing, and the way the tunnel sealed itself shut as if it had never been built at all. Davis's account lines up with fragments from a few other unofficial reports. What they describe wasn't a search mission, it was a containment sweep. The squad was equipped with standard MOPP-4 suits, full chemical protection, and issued portable radiation detectors, thermal scanners, and handheld sonar units designed to map underground cavities. That kind of loadout wasn't typical for field training. It was used for hazardous site investigations, the kind usually done alongside engineers or scientists, not combat infantry. According to Davis, before the team entered, Command sent a coded sequence to the hatch, a remote unlock signal. That means someone had already wired the site with control systems, suggesting prior military access. Once inside, the first 200 meters were what you'd expect. Standard Cold War bunker design. Reinforced concrete walls, airlock chambers, overhead cabling. But then, the structure changed. It looked older, Davis said, like the tunnels were built on top of something else. The deeper they went, the more their sensors began to malfunction. The thermal scanners showed pockets of heat with no known source, 20 to 30 degrees hotter than the surrounding air. Then came the signal drop. Their radios started bleeding static every 45 seconds, as if something underground was interfering with transmission. This wasn't normal static either. One of the surviving logs captured a repeating pattern. 3 seconds of silence, followed by 2 short bursts, almost like Morse code. The recorded data was later marked equipment error. But according to Davis, the comms tech on his team swore that the signal was intentional. It was like something was talking back, he said. At the 700-meter mark, the team discovered a sealed bulkhead. The metal had warped inward, like pressure had come from the other side. Behind it, they picked up faint vibrations, irregular, rhythmic. Davis described it as breathing through metal. They were ordered to stand down and await extraction. But then, as the temperature inside rose, the walls began to sweat, condensation forming along the seams of the structure. It was like the place was alive, Davis recalled. You could feel the air moving without wind, like something was pulling it through the tunnels. Within minutes, every piece of electronic equipment failed. Comms, lights, sonar, everything. That's when Command issued a hard recall, and all remaining teams were ordered out. According to Davis, 2 men never made it back to the surface. Their body cams were recovered, but the footage was classified immediately. The official line? Structural collapse due to geological instability. But there was no seismic activity recorded that night. Not by local monitoring stations, not by the U.S. Geological Survey. Whatever happened underground, it didn't shake the earth. It just went silent. According to Davis, once the team's gear died, everything went dark, but not silent. The tunnel was breathing. It was like standing inside a throat, he said. You could feel air moving, slow and steady, from deep below. They switched to manual flashlights, dim yellow beams slicing through the dust. The air tasted metallic. It clung to their masks. That's when one of the men, Corporal Hayes, spotted movement about 20 feet ahead. A shape, hunched, pressed against the far wall. It wasn't moving toward them. It was trembling. Davis raised his rifle, but the lieutenant's voice cut through the comm. Do not engage. The others hesitated, waiting for orders. Hayes stepped closer. I thought it was a person, Davis said, like someone in a torn hazmat suit. But when he got within a few feet, he froze. The figure unfolded itself from the wall, slowly. Its shape didn't make sense. Limbs too long. Head tilted at an angle that no human neck should hold. Hayes stepped back, whispering something the recorder didn't catch. Then the lights flickered again, and the thing was gone. Not ran, not disappeared into another tunnel, just gone. But the wall where it stood was wet. The concrete rippled, like something underneath was breathing against it. We backed up, Davis said. The lieutenant radioed for extraction again. Nothing but static. Then we heard it behind us. A slow scrape. Metal on stone. Getting louder. The men turned. Their flashlights caught glimpses. Movement on the ceiling. Shifting weight. Long strands that clung to the corners of the corridor like vines. And then, a sound. Not a roar, not a scream. Something closer to a word. A syllable dragged through static. Le Ave. The temperature dropped instantly. Davis said his visor fogged up from the inside. It wasn't trying to attack, he said. It was warning us. The lieutenant gave the order to fall back, but the path they came through was gone, sealed by smooth concrete, no seams, no hinges. The walls had changed again. For a few seconds, their flashlights caught movement inside the surface, shapes pressing outward from beneath the concrete, like something was inside the structure, shifting beneath the skin of the tunnel itself. Then, silence. That's when we blacked out, Davis said. All of us. When he woke up, he was outside. Frost on his suit, dawn light on the trees, and the hatch welded shut behind him. The other two survivors were already sedated, loaded into a separate transport. No debrief, no report. Just a non-disclosure order and a flight back to base. Davis never heard from Hayes again. But the image that stayed with him, the wall breathing, the whisper in the dark, still showed up in his dreams 30 years later. And each time, he said, the same sound followed him awake. That dragging scrape, somewhere just beneath the floorboards. Davis's story might have ended as just another classified rumor. Except he wasn't the only one who remembered that night. In 2014, an anonymous user on a veterans forum posted about an unsanctioned containment drill conducted in Vermont during the winter of 1983. The post was short, only 3 paragraphs, but one detail stood out. The user mentioned the same access code phrase Davis described. Team 1 entering. That phrase doesn't appear anywhere in standard Marine operation protocol. A year later, an independent researcher named Caleb Hensley, who specializes in Cold War infrastructure, requested several declassified military engineering files through the Freedom of Information Act. Among the hundreds of pages he received, 2 stood out. A 1983 environmental hazard report for Lamoille County, and a geotechnical assessment marked sealed, internal distribution only. Both referenced underground vibration anomalies, but neither listed any coordinates. Instead, each report cited the same project designation, R54, subsurface containment. That designation has never been linked to any known U.S. military construction project. What's strange is that the environmental report was signed by a civilian contractor, not a military official. The contractor's company dissolved 2 months later, and all public records of its operations disappeared. Hensley later published a breakdown of those findings online, showing maps of old mining routes beneath the Green Mountains. He overlaid them with seismic data from 1983, and one pattern stood out. There was a short, localized vibration recorded just past midnight on January 11, 1983, in the same region Davis described. It lasted only 7 seconds. It wasn't an earthquake. The waveform didn't match any known seismic event. Instead, it looked artificial, like a controlled blast or structural collapse. But what's most chilling is that after that night, the tunnels vanished from updated geological maps. Literally, gone. The 1984 revision of the USGS maps replaced the area's subsurface data with a blank gray overlay marked terrain obstructed. No explanation was ever given. When reporters later reached out to the Vermont National Guard and the Department of Environmental Conservation, both agencies replied with the same short statement. The referenced area remains under active monitoring and restricted access due to ongoing remediation. Remediation of what? They never said. But as Hensley noted in his research log, there were no chemical spills, no contamination alerts, and no mining accidents reported anywhere in Vermont that year. Whatever they were remediating, it wasn't in the soil. It was deeper.